Every holiday table in 1974 had that one dish nobody asked for and everybody finished. It sat in the avocado green bowl between the turkey and the rolls. You can still taste it if you close your eyes. The spoon scraping the Pyrex, the steam rising off the casserole dish. Your mother set it down without a word because she had been making it since before you were born. Number 14 on this list showed up on more Thanksgiving tables than the turkey. And number 8 has a name that sounds like it belongs at a funeral. That is because it does. These were the side dishes that held every meal together, never got the credit, and quietly disappeared when convenience took over. Here are 30 forgotten side dishes from the 1970s we want back. Number 30, Watergate salad. Nobody knows exactly why they called it Watergate, but every church basement in 1975 had a bowl of it. You mixed a box of pistachio pudding into a tub of Cool Whip, folded in canned crushed pineapple and a handful of miniature marshmallows, and put it in the refrigerator until it set. Some people threw in chopped pecans. The color was a pale green that did not exist anywhere in nature, and kids either loved it or refused to touch it. It was not a salad by any honest definition, but that is what everybody called it. You brought it to potlucks, barbecues, and holiday dinners, and the bowl always came home empty. Pistachio pudding mix still costs about $2, but nobody thinks to make it anymore. Number 29, copper pennies. These were carrots sliced into thin coins, cooked until just tender, and marinated overnight in a sauce of tomato soup, sugar, vinegar, oil, mustard, and Worcestershire. You served them cold straight from the jar. The sweet vinegar bite made them taste nothing like regular carrots, and that was the whole point. Women made jars of copper pennies at the start of the week and kept them in the refrigerator for days. They got better the longer they sat. Every potluck table in the Midwest had a dish of them next to the deviled eggs, and nobody under 40 has any idea what you are talking about if you mention the name now. The recipe fit on an index card, and the jar cost almost nothing to fill. Before I go any further, for the folks who want more recipes like these gathered in one place, I put together the Vintage Recipe Guide. You can find it on my website, vintagelifestyleusa.com. I will not bring it up again. If you want it, it is there. Now back to the list. Number 28, succotash. Lima beans and corn kernels cooked together in butter with a little salt. That was the whole recipe. Some cooks added diced red pepper for color or a splash of cream at the end, but the original was just those two vegetables in a pot. The name comes from a Narragansett word meaning broken corn, and the dish is older than the country itself. By the 1970s, every frozen food aisle carried a bag of succotash, and most families heated it straight from the bag as a weeknight side. It filled the plate, cost next to nothing, and went with everything from pork chops to fried chicken. Today you can barely find it in the freezer section, and most kids have never heard the word. Number 27, Harvard beets. Sliced beets simmered in a sauce of sugar, vinegar, cornstarch, and butter until the whole thing turned glossy and deep red. Nobody agrees on why they are called Harvard. One story says the color matched the school's crimson. Another says a restaurant near the campus served them first. The combination of sweet and sour with that earthy beet flavor was something people either craved or could not stand. Your grandmother probably made them from beets she canned herself in August. The jars sat in the cellar all winter and came out for Sunday dinner. You could buy canned Harvard beets at the store through the 1980s, but the shelf space slowly shrank. Most people under 50 have never tasted them. Number 26, stuffed celery. You took a rib of celery and filled the groove with cream cheese mixed with whatever you had. Pimento and chopped olives were the classic. Some women used peanut butter or a sharp cheese spread from a jar, or cream cheese with crushed pineapple. You cut each rib into pieces and lined them up on a plate like little boats. They showed up on every relish tray and holiday appetizer spread from about 1955 through 1985, and then they simply stopped. The crunch of cold celery against the soft filling was the whole appeal. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. A whole tray cost less than $1. Kids ate them because the cream cheese was mild, and adults ate them because they needed something to do with their hands before dinner was ready. Number 25, Pea salad. Frozen peas, thawed but not cooked, mixed with cubed cheddar cheese, diced onion, and enough mayonnaise to hold it together. Some recipes added chopped hard-boiled eggs or crumbled bacon. You served it cold, straight from the bowl. It sounds strange if you have never had it, but the combination of sweet raw peas and sharp cheddar was oddly satisfying, and it took 5 minutes to make. Church potlucks and family reunions always had at least one version on the table. The recipe passed from woman to woman on index cards and telephone calls, never from cookbooks. Nobody ever asked for it by name, but everybody noticed when it was missing. Number 24, broccoli cheese casserole. Chopped broccoli mixed with a can of cream of mushroom soup, shredded cheddar, and a sleeve of crushed Ritz crackers on top. You baked it at 350 until the crackers turned golden and the cheese bubbled through the cracks. Some cooks added a beaten egg to hold it together. Others stirred in Cheez Whiz instead of real cheddar because it melted smoother. This was the dish that convinced a generation of children that broccoli was worth eating. It showed up at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and any potluck where someone needed a hot side. The Ritz cracker topping was the part everyone fought over. The whole thing cost the price of a can of soup and a head of broccoli, and it fed 8 without complaint. Number 23, scalloped corn. 2 cans of creamed corn, a can of whole kernel, a cup of sour cream, a box of Jiffy corn muffin mix, and a stick of melted butter. You stirred it together and baked it until the top set and the edges browned. It came out somewhere between a pudding and a casserole, dense and sweet and rich. The Jiffy box was the secret. It gave the dish structure without turning it into cornbread. Families in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky served it alongside fried chicken and green beans, and everyone called it something different. Scalloped corn, corn casserole, corn souffle. The name changed by county, but the Jiffy box was always there. The leftovers reheated better than the first round. Number 22, pickled beets and eggs. You dropped peeled hard-boiled eggs into a jar of pickled beet juice and let them sit for at least 2 days. The eggs turned deep magenta all the way to the yolk, and the flavor was sweet, tangy, and faintly earthy. Pennsylvania Dutch families kept a jar going all winter. Diners in the mid-Atlantic states served them on the counter in big glass jars. The color hooked you or scared you off. Children either loved the purple surprise when you cut the egg open or refused to believe it was still an egg. They lasted for weeks and tasted better the longer they sat. 1 jar of beet juice could pickle a dozen eggs, and a dozen eggs cost almost nothing. Number 21, glorified rice. Cold-cooked rice folded into whipped cream with crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, and sometimes maraschino cherries. You chilled it and served it in a glass bowl. The name tells you everything about how people felt about it. Rice that got dressed up and taken out. Lutheran church basements in Minnesota and Wisconsin served it at every funeral, every confirmation dinner, and every Wednesday night supper for decades. The recipe came from Scandinavian immigrants who made a simpler version with just rice and cream, and American cooks added the marshmallows because that is what American cooks do. A cup of leftover rice, a can of pineapple, and you had a side dish that people asked about by name. The side dish was never meant to be the star. That was the whole point. It sat next to the meat and filled the empty space on the plate, and nobody built a meal around it. But the side dish was where the personality showed up. The roast was the roast. Anyone could follow a temperature and a timer. But the side dish was a choice. It said something about where you came from, what your mother taught you, and what you could afford. A woman who brought copper pennies to a church supper was telling you she planned ahead. A woman who made Harvard beets was telling you she still canned her own. The sides were the autobiography of the kitchen, and when they disappeared, we lost more than recipes. We lost the handwriting. Number 20, carrot raisin salad. Shredded carrots, a handful of raisins, and a dressing of mayonnaise with a little sugar and lemon juice. You mixed it by hand and served it cold. School cafeterias put it on the tray next to the Salisbury steak, and most kids pushed it aside. But adults ate it because it was sweet, crunchy, and cost almost nothing. The raisins softened overnight and turned into little bursts of sweetness between the carrot shreds. Some cooks added crushed pineapple. Others threw in celery or walnuts. It appeared in every community cookbook printed between 1960 and 1985, usually on the same page as Waldorf salad. Simple, honest, and completely out of fashion. Number 19. Perfection Salad. This was a gelatin mold made with lemon jello, vinegar, shredded cabbage, diced celery, chopped pimiento, and sometimes grated carrot. You dissolved the jello in boiling water, added vinegar and salt, let it cool until it thickened, then folded in the vegetables and poured it into a ring mold. It chilled overnight and came out looking like a jewel. The name was not a joke. It came from a recipe contest held by the Knox Gelatine Company in 1905. A home cook named Mrs. John E. Cook from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, entered the dish and won third prize. Fannie Farmer, already famous for her Boston Cooking School cookbook, sat on the judging panel, but she did not create the recipe. Knox printed it in their promotional pamphlets, and from there it spread across the country. By the 1920s, it had become the standard for modern organized cooking. The set held everything in place. No wilting, no dripping, no mess on the tablecloth. By the 1970s, Perfection Salad had spread to every region of the country. Women's magazines printed variations, but the original lemon and cabbage version remained the standard. It sat on the holiday table, unmolded onto a plate of lettuce leaves, sometimes with a dollop of mayonnaise on top. The whole thing cost less than 50 cents and fed 10 people. When gelatin salads fell out of fashion in the 1990s, Perfection Salad went with them. But unlike the sweet Jell-O molds that deserved to go, this one had real vegetables and a genuine tang that balanced a heavy meat dinner. It was practical, beautiful, and honest. It required patience, but no skill beyond following a recipe. And it looked like you had spent the whole morning in the kitchen. The name still fits. Number 18. Corn pudding. Not the same thing as scalloped corn, and if you say otherwise to someone from Virginia, they will correct you. Corn pudding was eggs, milk, butter, sugar, and fresh corn kernels scraped from the cob, baked until it puffed up and turned golden. It was closer to a custard than a casserole. The sweetness came from the corn itself, not from a box of muffin mix. Families in the Upper South served it alongside country ham and biscuits, and it showed up at every Thanksgiving table from Maryland to Tennessee. Making it from fresh corn was the only acceptable method, and when the season ended, so did the dish. That rhythm is gone now, and so is the pudding. Number 17. Fried okra. You sliced the pods into rounds, rolled them in cornmeal, and fried them in a cast iron skillet with enough oil to come halfway up the sides. The cornmeal turned into a thin, gritty crust, and the inside went soft and almost creamy without the slime that scared people away from okra cooked any other way. Every diner south of the Mason-Dixon line had fried okra on the menu, and families grew the plants in their own gardens. You picked the pods young, no longer than your finger, before they turned tough. The best fried okra was eaten standing in the kitchen seconds after it left the skillet, salted with your fingers over the stove. Restaurants still serve it, but the homemade version with garden okra is mostly gone. Number 16. Cheese grits casserole. Cooked grits stirred with a block of Velveeta, butter, eggs, and a shot of Worcestershire, baked until the top browned and the center set firm. It came out looking like a golden brick and smelled like nothing else in the southern kitchen. Regular grits were a breakfast staple, but the casserole version turned them into something worthy of company dinner. Garlic cheese grits was the fancier name when you added a clove or two, and that version spread north through military families and transplants. It held well on a buffet, reheated without falling apart, and cost next to nothing to feed a table of 6. Today, most grits come from a packet, and the casserole has been left behind alongside the slow-cooked original. Number 15. Coleslaw with boiled dressing. Before mayonnaise came in a jar, coleslaw dressing was made on the stove. You cooked eggs, vinegar, sugar, mustard, and a little flour together until it thickened. then poured it warm over shredded cabbage. The dressing clung differently than cold mayo, and the flavor was tangy and cooked, not raw and rich. German and Dutch immigrant families in Pennsylvania and the Midwest made this version for generations before Hellmann's took over. The warm dressing wilted the cabbage slightly, giving it a softer bite. Some added celery seed or a pinch of turmeric for color. Once store-bought mayonnaise became the default, nobody wanted to stand at the stove and whisk. The shortcut killed the original. There is a reason most of these dishes came from women, and it has nothing to do with cooking talent. It had to do with budget. The man brought home the paycheck and the meat. The woman figured out what to put next to it. Side dishes were where the math happened. You stretched a head of cabbage into coleslaw for 12. You turned leftover rice into glorified rice with a can of pineapple and some cream. The side dish was an act of engineering disguised as cooking, and the women who made them never wrote it down that way. They called it salad, or casserole, or nothing at all. The recipes survived on index cards, and when those hands stopped passing them along, the cards stayed in the drawer. Number 14. Creamed pearl onions. Tiny white pearl onions peeled by hand, simmered in a cream sauce made from butter, flour, milk, salt, and white pepper. The onions turned translucent and sweet after 20 minutes in the pot, and the sauce thickened around them like a blanket. Peeling the onions was the part nobody enjoyed. You blanched them in boiling water, shocked them in ice, then squeezed each one out of its skin with your fingers. A pound of onions meant 20 minutes at the sink. That work was why this dish showed up on Thanksgiving and Christmas and almost nowhere else. Too labor-intensive for a Tuesday. But on the holiday table, creamed onions earned their place. They sat in a small china bowl next to the turkey, and people who claimed not to like onions ate them without complaint because the cream and the slow cooking turned them into something entirely different. The sweetness of a properly cooked pearl onion is closer to a roasted chestnut than to anything raw in the onion family. Some cooks added a gratin of buttered breadcrumbs. Others stirred in a grating of nutmeg. Birdseye started selling frozen pearl onions in the 1960s, which should have saved the dish. Instead, the frozen ones never tasted the same, and the tradition faded anyway. Your grandmother did not complain about the peeling. She sat at the kitchen table with a bowl in her lap and got through the bag while the turkey roasted. The work was part of the meal, and when it stopped, so did the dish. Number 13. Waldorf salad. Diced apples, celery, walnuts, and mayonnaise. The original was created at the Waldorf Hotel in New York in 1896 by the maître d'hôtel Oscar Tchirky. His version had no walnuts. Those came later. By the 1970s, every diner and lunch counter served a variation, and home cooks added grapes, raisins, or whipped cream depending on the region. It straddled the line between salad and dessert, and nobody cared which side it fell on. The crunch of the celery against the soft apple and the richness of the mayo made it work, and the walnuts gave it weight. Today it reads as a punchline, but the original without the additions is still a genuinely good combination of flavors. Number 12. Stewed tomatoes. Canned whole tomatoes broken up in a pot with butter, sugar, torn pieces of white bread, and a pinch of salt. You cooked it until the bread dissolved into the juice, and the whole thing turned thick and sweet and savory. Families who canned their own tomatoes in August ate stewed tomatoes all winter long. The bread turned into soft, soaked pillows of tomato flavor that fell apart on your tongue. Some added diced onion or celery, others left it plain. It cost almost nothing, took 10 minutes, and filled the empty corner of a plate where a vegetable was supposed to go. The canned version at the grocery store never came close. Number 11. Buttered lima beans. Frozen limas boiled until tender, drained and tossed with a thick pat of butter, salt, and black pepper. That was it. No sauce, no cheese, no cracker topping. Half the country loved them, and the other half refused, and there was no middle ground. The people who grew up eating them at their grandmother's table still crave them, and the people who were forced through them in the school cafeteria still shudder. Baby limas were milder and creamier. Ford hook limas were larger, starchier, and more divisive. The butter took the chalky edge off and made them taste rich instead of flat. the most polarizing side dish in America, and it still is. Number 10. Cheese straws. Sharp cheddar grated and worked into a dough with flour, butter, cayenne pepper, and a pinch of salt. You pushed the dough through a cookie press or rolled it thin and cut it into strips, then baked until crisp and golden. They came out looking like thin orange sticks and tasted like pure cheese with a slow burn of cayenne at the back of your throat. Southern hostesses made them by the dozens for cocktail parties, holiday open houses, and bridge club. Every junior league cookbook in the South had a cheese straw recipe, and most women guarded theirs like a family secret. The cookie press was the key tool, and when those stopped selling, the cheese straws vanished with them. Number 9. Marinated mushrooms. Fresh button mushrooms soaked overnight in olive oil, red wine vinegar, garlic, oregano, and a bay leaf. You served them cold with toothpicks or spooned them onto a plate as a side. The marinade turned plain white mushrooms into something tangy, garlicky, and almost meaty. Italian-American families served them alongside antipasto platters, and by the 1970s they had spread to every cocktail party and fondue night in the suburbs. The jarred version at the store was rubbery and bland. The homemade version with fresh garlic and good olive oil was silky and rich. That difference mattered, and when people stopped making them from scratch, the dish lost its reason to exist. Convenience was not the enemy. Nobody wants to go back to peeling pearl onions by hand every Tuesday night. The enemy was forgetting. When the frozen version replaced the fresh and the frozen version disappeared from the shelf, the dish was gone twice. First the method, then the memory. The thing about a side dish is that nobody fights for it. When a restaurant closes, people mourn the signature entree. When a tradition fades, people miss the turkey or the ham. Nobody starts a petition for stewed tomatoes. But the side dishes were the connective tissue of the meal. They made the plate feel complete instead of lonely. They deserved to be remembered. Number 8. Funeral potatoes. Hash browns mixed with cream of chicken soup, sour cream, shredded cheddar, and crushed cornflakes on top, baked until it bubbled and the cornflakes turned golden. The name came from Mormon communities in Utah, where this casserole appeared at every funeral reception without fail. When someone died, the women of the ward made funeral potatoes. It was as certain as the eulogy. The dish spread through church cookbooks and military wives who carried the recipe to bases across the country, but the name stuck. Other regions called it party potatoes or hash brown casserole, but funeral potatoes was the honest name because it told you exactly when it appeared. You assembled the whole thing in 15 minutes and put it in the oven while you got dressed for the service. It fed 20 people from one pan and required no skill, no special ingredients, and no thought. You made it on autopilot, which was exactly what you needed on the day you buried someone you loved. Grief is not the time for creativity. It is the time for something warm and familiar. Number 7. Ambrosia. Canned mandarin oranges, coconut flakes, miniature marshmallows, pineapple chunks, sour cream, and sometimes maraschino cherries, all folded together and chilled. The name means food of the gods, which tells you how the women who made it felt about it. It showed up in a cut glass bowl at every holiday dinner and church supper in the South and Midwest for 30 years. The coconut was the signature. It set this apart from every other fruit mixture on the table. Some families added pecans or bananas. Others used Cool Whip instead of sour cream. The version your mother made was the correct one, and every other version was wrong. That argument is still happening today, which means the dish is not entirely dead. It is waiting. Number 6. The relish tray. A sectioned glass dish filled with celery sticks, carrot sticks, radish roses, green and black olives, sweet pickles, and dill pickles. It sat on the table before the meal and stayed through dessert. Nobody called it a course. It was just there, the way a centerpiece was there, except you ate it. Making the radish roses took patience. You scored the skin with a paring knife and soaked them in ice water until the petals curled. The olives came from a can, the pickles from a jar, the vegetables from the garden. There was nothing to cook and nothing to assemble beyond arrangement. It was pure presentation. and it disappeared when presentation stopped mattering at the family table. Number 5. Deviled eggs. Hard-boiled eggs cut in half, the yolks mashed with mayonnaise, mustard, sweet pickle relish, salt, and paprika piped back into the whites. The paprika was for color, not flavor. Every family reunion, every Easter dinner, and every summer picnic had a plate, and they were always the first thing gone. The trick was getting the yolks out clean and the filling smooth. Some added a splash of vinegar. Others used Miracle Whip instead of mayonnaise, which started a fight that has never ended. The deviled egg plate with its little oval indentations was a piece of equipment every household owned, and nobody owns anymore. You can still find deviled eggs at a church potluck now and then, but the era when no gathering was complete without a full plate of them, when someone in the family was specifically assigned the job of making 3 dozen before noon, that era is gone. They were the side dish people fought over before the main course was even carved. Number 4. Creamed spinach. Frozen chopped spinach thawed, squeezed dry, and stirred into a sauce of butter, flour, cream, and a grating of nutmeg. The nutmeg was the difference between creamed spinach that tasted like something and creamed spinach that tasted like baby food. Steakhouses served it as the standard vegetable side through the 1970s and 1980s, spooned into a small dish next to the baked potato. At home, mothers made it because it was the only reliable way to get children to eat spinach without a fight. The cream disguised the bitterness, and the nutmeg made it smell worth trying. It required a proper roux and a few minutes of stirring, which was just enough effort to stop most people from bothering once frozen entrees took over. Number 3. Candied yams with marshmallows. Canned sweet potatoes laid in a baking dish, topped with brown sugar, butter, and a thick layer of miniature marshmallows, baked until the marshmallows puffed and browned. Whether this was a side dish or dessert has been argued since the 1930s, and nobody has settled it. What is settled is that it was on the Thanksgiving table in every region for 50 years, and the marshmallow layer was structural, not decorative. Children ate it because it was essentially candy. Adults ate it because it reminded them of being children. The marshmallows melted into a sticky glaze that fused with the brown sugar and created a crust you cracked through with a fork. 10 minutes to assemble, 30 to bake. It asked nothing but a can opener and an oven. Number 2. Spinach soufflé. Stouffer's made the version most people remember. A frozen block in a foil tray that you baked until it puffed and turned golden. The real recipe involved eggs separated and beaten, cream, flour, parmesan, and cooked spinach folded together carefully so the whites kept their lift. You baked it in a straight-sided dish and served it immediately because it started falling the moment it left the oven. That urgency was what made it feel special. A side dish that demanded attention and timing, which is why the frozen version outsold the homemade by a wide margin. Most families never attempted it from scratch. When Stouffer's changed the recipe in the 1990s, the dish lost its last foothold. Number 1. Baked macaroni and cheese from scratch. Not the kind from a box, not the microwave cup. The real one, made with a roux of butter and flour, whole milk stirred in slowly until it thickened, sharp cheddar melted into the sauce until it turned glossy, elbow macaroni folded in, poured into a baking dish, topped with more cheese and breadcrumbs and baked until the top cracked and the edges bubbled. Every family had a version, and every version was the right one. Some used Velveeta for smoothness. Some used 3 different cheeses. Some added dry mustard or a pinch of cayenne. It cost less than $3 and fed a family for 2 nights. It was the side that became the main when money was short. The side that showed up at every holiday and every funeral and every Wednesday when nobody felt like trying. It was the simplest, most democratic dish on the American table, and the fact that we handed it over to a powder packet in a blue box is one of the quieter losses of the last 50 years. Make it this week. Number 24. Stewed tomatoes. Peeling tomatoes over a sink full of ice water was the late August ritual in farmhouse kitchens across Ohio and Pennsylvania and downstate Illinois. A mother dunked the tomatoes in boiling water for 30 seconds, slipped the skins off with her thumb, and quartered the flesh into a heavy saucepan. Sugar went in, a tablespoon of butter, a piece of torn stale bread to soak up the juice and thicken the pot. The pan simmered for an hour while she did the laundry. Stewed tomatoes came to the table in a small glass bowl, sweet and savory at once, the smell of the kitchen for the rest of the afternoon. A jar of stewed tomatoes on the pantry shelf in January meant the August garden was still feeding the family. Stewed tomatoes were the side dish a home garden made inevitable. Chow chow was the relish that appeared at nearly every hillbilly meal, a tangy, colorful condiment made from whatever the garden produced in excess before frost arrived. The recipe varied by family, but most versions combined green tomatoes, cabbage, onions, and peppers chopped fine and preserved in a sweet and sour vinegar brine, seasoned with mustard seed, celery seed, and turmeric. Making chow chow was an end-of-summer ritual where women gathered to chop vegetables, fill massive kettles with the mixture, and process jar after jar of golden relish. The preparation took entire days, filling kitchens with the sharp smell of vinegar and the sound of chopping knives against wooden boards. This relish sat beside plates of pinto beans, transforming each bite with brightness and crunch that plain beans couldn't provide alone. Families judged each other's recipes, comparing sweetness levels and heat from peppers. A jar of good chow chow was a gift worth giving, representing investment of time and garden harvest. Cabbage slaw with vinegar dressing was the tangy counterpart to the creamy coleslaws that would later dominate family tables. It relied on shredded cabbage, onions, and sometimes peppers, tossed with vinegar, sugar, and a touch of oil. The result was a crisp, refreshing side dish that paired perfectly with meats, especially barbecue or fried chicken. Families appreciated how inexpensive it was, since cabbage was cheap, easy to grow, and stored well. Vinegar-based dressings also kept the slaw longer than creamier alternatives, which made it practical for picnics, potlucks, and outdoor gatherings. It carried a sharper flavor that cut through rich main dishes, balancing plates with brightness and crunch. Children might have preferred creamier versions, but vinegar slaw was a staple across many regions before mayonnaise-based salads took over. Its presence at community gatherings and dinner tables showed how thrift and tradition guided mid-century cooking. Though overshadowed today, cabbage slaw with vinegar dressing was once the go-to side dish that stood as a refreshing, reliable classic. Number 29. Wilted lettuce salad. Bacon grease did the work that olive oil does now. A mother in a Pennsylvania Dutch farmhouse outside Lancaster would fry 4 strips, pour the hot fat over a bowl of torn leaf lettuce, and call the family before the leaves crisped back. Vinegar went in, a spoonful of sugar, sometimes a sliced hard-boiled egg. The salad was warm, not cold. It tasted like the smell of a Sunday kitchen, smoky and sharp at once. Wilted lettuce showed up on tables in Ohio and West Virginia and Indiana, anywhere a household had a garden and bacon in the icebox. It was not on any restaurant menu in 1962. It was a homemade thing. Wilted lettuce proved heat and vinegar belonged on greens. Fried okra transformed a vegetable that many outsiders found slimy into crispy, golden nuggets that disappeared from plates before anything else at summer suppers. Fresh okra was sliced into rounds about ½ an inch thick, then tossed in buttermilk before being dredged in seasoned cornmeal that clung to every surface. The coated pieces were fried in hot lard or bacon grease in cast iron skillets, turned carefully until each piece developed a crunchy golden shell while the inside became tender. The key was high heat and not crowding the pan, lessons passed from mother to daughter across generations. Fried okra appeared at family reunions, church suppers, and everyday meals throughout summer when gardens produced more okra than families could eat fresh. Children who claimed to hate vegetables would devour fried okra without complaint, the cornmeal coating and crispy texture disguising what lay beneath. This dish proved that proper technique could transform any ingredient into something loved. Fried apples were once a familiar side dish in Southern homes, where fruit was often treated as part of the main meal rather than dessert. Sliced apples were sautéed in butter and sprinkled with sugar, cooked until tender and golden. The dish had a natural sweetness that made it popular with children, while still pairing well with savory foods like pork chops or biscuits. Housewives liked fried apples because they required no special equipment, just a skillet and whatever fruit was on hand. They worked especially well in autumn when orchards provided more apples than families could eat fresh. Leftover apples nearing spoilage could also be saved from waste by frying them, which fit the thrifty mentality of the time. The scent of apples cooking in butter filled kitchens with warmth and comfort, becoming part of many families' food memories. Although fried apples have mostly vanished from modern dinners, they remain one of those sides that defined regional tradition, a reminder of when practicality and sweetness blended seamlessly on the dinner table. Number 21, cucumber slices in vinegar. The crunch came first, then the sharpness of the vinegar, then the bite of the raw onion. A mother in a Carolina farmhouse or a Long Island ranch house would peel a few cucumbers from the garden, slice them paper thin with a sharp knife, layer them in a glass bowl with rings of sweet onion, and pour over them a brine of white vinegar, water, sugar, salt, and a little fresh dill if she had it. The bowl sat in the icebox for an hour and came to the table next to fried chicken or pork chops or a hot ham sandwich. It was the cheapest cold dish in the summer rotation. A whole bowl cost less than a dime. Cucumber slices in vinegar were the side dish that a kitchen garden made automatic. Now, killed lettuce earned its dramatic name from the hot dressing that transformed raw greens into a wilted, intensely flavored side dish, distinct from its cousin, wilted lettuce salad. The difference was subtle but important to mountain cooks who took pride in regional variations and family recipes. Killed lettuce used a dressing heavy on vinegar with less bacon fat, creating a sharper, more acidic result that truly killed the crispness of fresh leaves. Garden lettuce was torn into a large bowl, while bacon was fried in a cast-iron skillet. Then vinegar, water, sugar, and salt were added to drippings and brought to a rolling boil. This scalding liquid was poured directly over lettuce while stirring rapidly, ensuring every leaf was coated and softened. Green onions and crumbled bacon were added along with sliced, hard-boiled eggs in some households. The dish was served immediately, steam still rising. This was spring tonic food, believed to cleanse the blood after winter. Molded cranberry salad was one of those gelatin creations that became linked to Thanksgiving and Christmas meals. Cranberries, often canned, were mixed with nuts, citrus, and sometimes celery, then set in a bright red gelatin mold. It was eye-catching, colorful, and perfectly in step with the mid-century love of molded salads. Housewives served it as a side dish that walked the line between savory and sweet, complementing turkey and stuffing with its tart bite. Children liked the wobbling texture and sweetness, while adults valued the festive presentation it brought to the table. The dish reflected how important appearance had become in family meals, where even side dishes were expected to impress guests. Molded cranberry salad carried a celebratory quality, marking holidays with something more decorative than practical. Though it has almost entirely disappeared from modern feasts, it was once an expected presence at holiday dinners, a symbol of how food and tradition worked hand in hand to create family memories. Number 26, three-bean salad. By Thursday evening, the church supper committee had 100 paper plates stacked on a folding table and a glass bowl of three-bean salad in the middle of the room. A can of green beans, a can of wax beans, a can of kidney beans, all drained and rinsed, a diced onion, a chopped green pepper, vinegar, sugar, vegetable oil, salt, pepper, stirred together in a measuring cup and poured over the beans. The bowl went into the icebox overnight. By Friday potluck, it had soaked up every flavor in the jar. A working mother could throw three-bean salad together in 12 minutes on a Wednesday and serve it on a Sunday. It traveled well. It did not wilt. It fed 20 people from one mixing bowl, and the leftovers tasted better than the first serving. Three-bean salad was the side dish a potluck schedule made famous. Cracklin' Bread elevated ordinary cornbread into something rich and unforgettable by adding pork cracklings left over from rendering lard during hog killing season. When families butchered their yearly hog, fat was slowly rendered in massive iron kettles, leaving behind crispy bits of skin and meat that were golden, crunchy, and intensely flavored with concentrated pork essence. These cracklings were mixed directly into cornbread batter, distributing tiny pockets of crunch and richness throughout the bread. The batter was poured into a preheated cast iron skillet, greased with more lard, creating a crusty bottom that shattered when you bit into it. Each slice contained surprises where cracklings had melted slightly during baking, leaving savory, crispy nuggets that made ordinary cornbread taste like celebration. Mountain families served cracklin' bread alongside beans, greens, and soups, where it soaked up pot liquor while adding its own flavor dimension. This bread proved that nothing from the hog went to waste. Succotash was one of the most enduring side dishes to come out of the Depression years, making use of ingredients that were cheap, plentiful, and filling. It combined corn and lima beans, simmered together in butter or drippings to create a simple but hearty dish. Many households kept canned corn and beans on hand, so succotash required little planning and could be pulled together quickly. It was both nutritious and practical, stretching small amounts of vegetables into something substantial enough to serve alongside meat or bread. Children might not have loved lima beans, but they ate succotash because it was always there, dependable and filling. The dish carried over into the 1940s and 1950s, often appearing at holiday tables alongside turkey or chicken. In some regions, variations added cream or peppers to give it more depth. By the late 20th century, succotash slipped from popularity, but for decades it was a comfort food that reminded families of resilience and thrift during leaner times. Number 25. Macaroni salad. Hellmann's mayonnaise carried this dish across the suburbs through the decade. A pound of elbow macaroni boiled and cooled, 2 cups of Hellmann's, a chopped celery rib, a diced sweet pickle, a hard-boiled egg, a sprinkle of paprika. That was the recipe, except there was no recipe, only a feel for it. A mother in Wanta or Hicksville would make a bowl on Saturday morning and serve it through Tuesday lunch. Macaroni salad rode in a Tupperware bowl to backyard cookouts and came back out for sandwiches the next day. It was cheap, filling, and forgiving. Macaroni salad was the side that fed a working week from one bowl. Creamed corn made from scratch bore no resemblance to the bland, starchy contents of commercial cans that would later replace this labor of love in most kitchens. Mountain cooks started with fresh sweet corn at peak ripeness, cutting kernels from the cob with sharp knives, then scraping cobs with the blades back to extract every drop of milky liquid hiding in the corn. This corn milk was the secret ingredient that commercial versions lacked, providing natural thickening and intense corn flavor without need for flour or cornstarch. The kernels and milk were simmered slowly in butter with salt, pepper, and sometimes a splash of cream until the mixture thickened into a rich, sweet mass that clung to serving spoons. The flavor was pure corn essence, sweet and slightly nutty with the richness of butter mellowing every bite. Children who grew up eating homemade creamed corn found canned versions shocking in their inferiority. This dish required patience and fresh ingredients, virtues mountain kitchens had in abundance. Pineapple and cheese salad might sound strange to modern ears, but it was once a beloved mid-century favorite. A canned pineapple ring would be laid on a bed of lettuce, topped with a slice of sharp cheddar cheese, and finished with a dollop of mayonnaise. The combination of sweet, salty, and creamy flavors made it memorable, even if unusual. It was quick to prepare, colorful on the plate, and affordable since canned pineapple had become widely available by then. Children liked the sweetness of the fruit, while adults valued the contrast of cheese and tangy dressing. This dish often appeared at luncheons, bridge parties, and holiday tables, offering something that looked cheerful without requiring much effort. It reflected a time when canned goods were celebrated as modern conveniences that brought exotic tastes into ordinary kitchens. Though it has nearly vanished from menus today, pineapple and cheese salad once brightened countless tables, proving that simplicity and novelty could live side by side in one dish. Number 22. Glazed carrots. Brown sugar melted into butter in a saucepan and coated a pound of sliced carrots until they shone. The mother who made glazed carrots on a Wednesday night had probably watched her own mother do the same in 1942. Boil the carrots first, drain them, return them to the pan with the butter and sugar, swirl until the glaze thickens. Some households added a splash of orange juice, some added a sprinkle of ginger. The The carrots came to the table on the same plate as a pork chop or a slice of pot roast, and even the children who refused carrots at lunch would eat them at supper. The brown sugar did the convincing. Glazed carrots were the dish that proved a vegetable could be dessert and side at the same time. Corn relish captured the sweet essence of summer corn in jars that could be opened months later to brighten winter meals with memories of warm August days. The preparation began with fresh sweet corn cut from the cob, kernels mixed with diced peppers, onions, and celery, in proportions that varied by family tradition. This vegetable mixture was combined with vinegar, sugar, mustard seed, and turmeric, then simmered until flavors melded before being ladled into sterilized jars and processed in boiling water baths. The finished relish was golden yellow with flecks of red and green from peppers, beautiful enough to display on pantry shelves. Corn relish appeared at holiday meals, Sunday dinners, and any occasion calling for something special beyond everyday fare. It was spooned over pinto beans, served alongside ham and biscuits, or eaten straight from the jar as a sweet and tangy snack. Mountain families traded jars of corn relish as currency of friendship and goodwill, each jar representing genuine effort and care. Jell-O vegetable salad was a creation that reflected both creativity and mid-century pride in convenience foods. Housewives would suspend peas, carrots, celery, or even olives inside brightly colored gelatin molds, often flavored with lime or lemon. These molds were carefully unmolded onto plates, sometimes garnished with lettuce to make them look more formal. They were a display piece as much as a side dish, reflecting how gelatin symbolized modern cooking in the 1960s. For children, it was often confusing to see vegetables trapped in wobbly desserts, but for adults, it represented resourcefulness and style. Recipes appeared in magazines and community cookbooks, encouraging homemakers to experiment with colors and textures. At potlucks, these shimmering molds stood tall on tables, admired as much for their appearance as their taste. Over time, the trend faded as people grew weary of the odd flavor pairings. Yet for a period, Jell-O vegetable salads were not just food but conversation starters at American family tables. Number 20. Corn pudding. Egg and cream did the binding work, and a can of cream-style corn did everything else. A mother in a Virginia Tidewater kitchen or a Kentucky bluegrass farmhouse would beat 3 eggs in a Pyrex bowl, stir in evaporated milk, a tablespoon of flour, a tablespoon of sugar, salt and pepper, and a 15-ounce can of Del Monte cream-style corn. The mixture went into a buttered baking dish and into a 350 oven for 50 minutes. The pudding came out custardy in the middle, golden brown at the edges, sweet and soft and savory all at once. It sat on the Sunday table next to a country ham. It was a side dish, but a child would eat it like dessert. Corn pudding was the side dish that a Sunday oven made worth the wait. Poke salad represented both the danger and reward of foraging in Appalachian communities where knowing which plants could feed you and which could kill you was essential survival knowledge. This wild green emerged each spring along fence rows, creek banks, and forest edges, tempting hungry families after long winters of preserved foods. The preparation was critical because raw pokeweed contained toxins that could cause serious illness. So mountain women boiled young leaves multiple times, discarding water between each boiling until bitterness and danger were removed. The thoroughly cooked greens were fried in bacon grease with onions, seasoned with salt and pepper, and sometimes scrambled with eggs. The flavor was earthy, slightly bitter, and deeply satisfying to those who craved fresh vegetables after months of dried beans. Children learned identification and preparation methods by watching their mothers and grandmothers. Understanding this knowledge was survival itself. 3-bean salad was once a guaranteed sight at picnics and reunions, its bright colors and tangy flavor standing out among heavier dishes. The mix of green beans, wax beans, and kidney beans marinated in a vinegar dressing made it both refreshing and economical. Housewives loved how simple it was to prepare, since all it required was canned beans, vinegar, sugar, and oil, plus maybe a few onions if available. The salad could be made in advance, stored in the refrigerator, and brought out ready to serve, which made it perfect for busy families. Its sweet and sour tang cut through greasy barbecue or fried chicken, making it practical as well as tasty. Children sometimes picked around the beans, but most adults welcomed it as a lighter dish among calorie-heavy meals. Over time, creamy potato salads and coleslaws began to replace it, pushing three-bean salad out of favor. Once a star of the picnic table, it is now rarely made at all, leaving behind memories of simpler gatherings where vinegar and sugar worked small miracles in everyday cooking. Number 17. Scalloped potatoes. A generation of mothers in suburban kitchens from Westchester to Orange County built a Sunday dinner around this one dish. Russet potatoes, peeled and sliced on a wooden board, layered in a Pyrex dish with butter and flour and rings of yellow onion, drowned in whole milk from the glass bottle on the back step, baked in a 325 oven for an hour and a half. The cheese came later, after steakhouse versions reached home kitchens. In 1962, most mothers made scalloped potatoes without cheese because cheese was for grilled sandwiches, not the Sunday side. The woman who pulled this dish from her oven was not a chef. She did not measure the milk. She poured until the top layer was just covered. She knew the time by the smell. When the kitchen smelled like sweet milk and onion and a faint scorch, the dish was done. The detail rarely mentioned about scalloped potatoes is what the dish actually was. It was not just a side. It was the centerpiece when the meat was thin. A pork chop split between three children stretched into a full meal because a corner of the casserole sat next to it. A small ham could feed 7 if the dish came out big enough. A generation of mothers who learned to cook through wartime rationing, the women our own mothers learned from, carried the trick of the stretching side into the prosperity of the 1960s, and the casserole stayed because the lesson stayed in the hand. A woman who came of age in 1948 did not unlearn the math of feeding a family on what was available. She just had more milk in the icebox now, and a Pyrex dish that did not crack, and a station wagon in the driveway. Scalloped potatoes proved a lean lesson could survive an easy decade. Fried apples served as a sweet and savory side dish that graced hillbilly tables from breakfast through supper during apple harvest season. Families with orchards or access to wild apple trees gathered firm, tart varieties that held their shape when cooked rather than dissolving into mush. The apples were cored and sliced thick, leaving peels on for color and texture, then dropped into a cast iron skillet where bacon grease or butter was already melting. Brown sugar was sprinkled over the slices along with cinnamon and sometimes nutmeg. The apples cooked slowly, turning golden and caramelized while releasing juices into a sweet syrup that coated each slice. Mothers served fried apples alongside pork chops, country ham, or breakfast sausage where the sweetness cut through the richness of the meat. Children loved them because they tasted almost like dessert but appeared at regular meals. This dish stretched the harvest into countless suppers. Creamed spinach was a dish that once held a secure place both at home and in steakhouses. Fresh or frozen spinach was cooked down, then combined with butter, cream, and a hint of nutmeg to create a rich, velvety side. It paired beautifully with roasts and steaks, making it a favorite in both home kitchens and restaurants. Families appreciated its nutritional value as well as its comforting taste, which softened the bitterness of spinach. It was one way to get children to eat their greens, dressed up with enough creaminess to feel indulgent. In steakhouses, creamed spinach was considered essential, often appearing alongside baked potatoes as the classic pairing for a hearty dinner. Though lighter vegetable dishes eventually replaced it, creamed spinach had a long run as a dependable, beloved side. Today, it has nearly disappeared from everyday family meals, but it remains a reminder of a time when richness and comfort were valued at the dinner table as much as thrift. Number 28. Mashed rutabagas. Rutabaga was the root that fed Vermont and Minnesota and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan when carrots ran out. A mother peeled the waxy yellow skin with a paring knife, cut the flesh into chunks, boiled it soft, and mashed it with butter and salt. Some households added a little brown sugar, some added a splash of cream. The flavor was earthier than potato, sweeter than turnip, and it sat on a Tuesday plate next to a pork roast for under 20 cents a serving. Grocery stores in Duluth and Burlington stocked rutabagas in bushel baskets through winter. The vegetable was cheap because nobody under 40 wanted it, and cheap was the point. Mashed rutabagas were the side dish the cold months made necessary. Wilted lettuce salad transformed fresh garden greens into something warm and tangy during spring months across Appalachia. Mountain families gathered tender leaf lettuce from backyard gardens in cool morning hours before the sun wilted the delicate leaves naturally. The magic happened in a cast-iron skillet, where thick sliced bacon was fried until crispy, then removed while the hot drippings remained sizzling. Vinegar, sugar, and water were added to the bubbling fat, creating a dressing that hissed and steamed. This hot mixture was poured immediately over fresh lettuce, causing leaves to soften and glisten while absorbing smoky, tangy flavors. Bacon crumbles were scattered on top along with sliced green onions and sometimes a chopped, hard-boiled egg. The dish had to be eaten immediately while still warm, making it a communal experience where families gathered quickly around the table. This was spring captured in a bowl, proof that mountain gardens provided luxury when treated with skill. Ambrosia salad was a dish that carried with it the unmistakable mark of church basements and southern tables. Made from canned fruit cocktail, shredded coconut, and a generous handful of marshmallows, it was less a salad and more a sweet, creamy treat disguised as a side dish. It often appeared at potlucks, picnics, and Sunday gatherings where it sat proudly in glass bowls that showed off its bright colors. For many families, ambrosia was a symbol of hospitality, a way to offer something sweet, even when dessert was not planned. The canned fruit made it affordable and available year-round, while the marshmallows made it especially popular with children. It was refreshing, easy to prepare, and flexible enough to include extra touches like whipped cream or nuts if the pantry allowed. Over time, its sugary character fell out of favor as tastes moved toward healthier or more modern sides. Still, ambrosia salad once defined togetherness, turning even the simplest meal into something worth remembering. Number 19. Pickled beets. The jar was always there, on the second shelf of the pantry, the deep red liquid catching the light when the door swung open. A mother in a Mason City kitchen or a Saginaw cottage had probably put up 24 jars in late September from the beets in her garden, and now it was February and the jars came out one by one. She drained the beets onto a glass plate, sliced them into thin discs, fanned them out, and set the plate on the supper table. Sometimes she served them straight from the jar with the brine. The flavor was sweet and sharp and earthy, and the color stained the white tablecloth if a child got careless. Pickled beets cost almost nothing per serving because the work had been done in the harvest. Pickled beets were the side dish a fall canning day made winter possible. Shucky beans carried the taste of summer into winter months through a preservation method requiring no canning equipment, no salt, and no refrigeration beyond a dry place to hang them. Mountain families harvested mature green beans, strung them on heavy thread using large needles, and hung these bean garlands from porch rafters or kitchen ceilings where circulating air dried them slowly over weeks. The dried beans turned brown and rattled like leather when shaken, storing indefinitely until needed. Rehydrating shucky beans required overnight soaking, followed by hours of slow simmering with a ham hock or fatback until the beans became tender and absorbed smoky meat flavors. The resulting dish had a concentrated, almost meaty flavor that fresh green beans could never achieve, with a texture that was hearty rather than crisp. This preservation technique required no purchased supplies beyond thread, making it accessible to even the poorest families who could grow beans but couldn't afford canning jars. Baked macaroni and tomatoes was a hearty casserole that stood proudly on dinner tables before creamy macaroni and cheese became the standard. It combined pasta with stewed or canned tomatoes, seasoned with onions, salt, and pepper, then baked until the flavors melded together. Families appreciated its affordability since both macaroni and canned tomatoes were inexpensive staples available throughout the year. The dish was filling and could easily serve as either a side or a main meal when money was tight. Housewives liked how flexible it was, often adding bits of bacon, cheese, or leftover vegetables when available. Children enjoyed the tangy tomato flavor, which was far more exciting than plain noodles. It was especially common in the 1940s and 1950s, when pantry cooking shaped much of American dining. Though baked macaroni and tomatoes has largely vanished from modern meals, it remains a snapshot of mid-century kitchens, where practicality ruled and flavor was drawn from whatever ingredients could be stretched farthest. For many families, it was comfort food at its most frugal and dependable. Number 23. Hot German potato salad. Vinegar was the trick that separated this potato salad from every other potato salad in the country. A mother in a Milwaukee bungalow with German grandparents would boil red potatoes in their skins, slice them warm into a bowl, and pour over them a sauce of bacon grease, cider vinegar, sugar, and crisp bacon bits. The salad was served hot, not cold. It tasted like Sunday lunch in a Wisconsin parish hall. The dressing soaked in and turned the bowl tangy and rich at once. Heinz vinegar ran ads all through the 1960s built around this dish, because every German-American household in Milwaukee and Cincinnati was making it without a card. Hot German potato salad was the side immigrant grandmothers kept alive through their daughters. Vinegar coleslaw provided cool, tangy relief alongside heavy summer meals without the richness of mayonnaise that could spoil quickly in kitchens without reliable refrigeration. Fresh cabbage was shredded fine using sharp knives or hand-cranked shredders, then tossed with salt and left to wilt slightly, releasing liquid that was squeezed out before dressing. The dressing was simple but precise, combining vinegar with sugar, celery seed, and sometimes a touch of prepared mustard, heated until the sugar dissolved before being poured hot over the cabbage. This quick pickling process softened the cabbage while infusing it with bright, tangy flavor that improved over several hours. Unlike creamy coleslaws that had to be eaten immediately, vinegar slaw lasted for days in the icebox, making it practical for families who cooked large batches. It appeared beside fried chicken, barbecue, and fish fries where its acidity cut through richness. This slaw proved that simple preparations often outlast fancier versions. Pickled beets and eggs were once a pantry staple in rural households, bringing both color and nutrition to the family table. Hard-boiled eggs were stored in jars with beets, vinegar, sugar, and spices, creating a striking pink hue and tangy flavor. This dish was practical because it kept well without refrigeration, making it ideal for farm families or those with limited storage. The flavor was bold and unusual, with the eggs taking on the sweetness and acidity of the beet brine. Children often found them strange, but adults enjoyed their brightness as a change from plain sides. They were especially popular in Pennsylvania Dutch kitchens, where they carried cultural significance. The dish required little effort and used inexpensive ingredients, which was valuable during rationing years. Though rarely seen on tables now, pickled beets and eggs were once an essential reminder of frugality, resourcefulness, and the joy of adding color and flavor to otherwise simple meals during the mid-century years. Number 27. Buttered lima beans. The smell of butter melting in a saucepan over a low flame was the start of 1,000 weeknight dinners. A box of Birds Eye baby limas went in frozen, half a stick of butter, a teaspoon of salt, a grind of pepper. 10 minutes later, the limas were on the plate next to fish sticks or sliced ham, glossy and pale green and soft. Children who hated lima beans at school would eat them at home because their mother had not boiled them into gray paste. The trick was butter and not too much water. Birds Eye sold the boxes from the freezer case of every A&P and Kroger and Safeway, and a mother could buy 3 for 45 cents. Buttered limas were the side frozen food made easy. Pickled beets appeared on hillbilly tables throughout the year, their deep purple color staining plates and fingers while delivering sweet and tangy flavor that cut through heavy winter meals. Summer gardens produced abundant beet harvests that families preserved in glass jars filled with vinegar brine sweetened with sugar and spiced with cloves. The beets were boiled until tender, slipped from their skins while warm, then packed into sterilized jars where hot pickling liquid covered them completely. These jars lined cellar shelves like jewels, their dark contents promising brightness during gray winter months when fresh vegetables were memories. Served cold straight from the jar, Pickled beets accompanied pinto beans, cornbread, and fatback as a refreshing contrast to rich, heavy foods. Some families sliced their pickled beets thin while others left them whole, the style often identifying which holler had preserved them. This dish represented summer's abundance preserved for winter's need. Harvard beets were a sweet and sour side dish that reflected the Midwestern love of hearty, simple foods. Beets were simmered in vinegar, sugar, and butter until tender, then thickened into a glossy sauce. The balance of tangy and sweet flavors made them stand out among plainer vegetables. They were inexpensive, easy to prepare, and filling, which made them a regular presence at supper tables. Housewives often turned to this recipe when other vegetables were scarce, since beets stored well and were available throughout the year. Children sometimes resisted the strong flavor, but adults valued their versatility and nutrition. The dish was particularly popular in Midwestern kitchens, where families saw it as both practical and comforting. Over time, tastes shifted, and beets themselves became less common on American tables, leaving Harvard beets to fade into memory. For much of the 20th century, however, they were a staple side dish that represented the balance of thrift, flavor, and tradition in American cooking. Number 18. Boiled onions and cream. Simmering pearl onions in a saucepan of milk thickened with a little flour and butter was the Thanksgiving side dish that grandmothers in Hartford and Boston and Portland refused to give up. The onions came in a mesh bag from the produce aisle, small and round and pale. A mother trimmed the root ends, peeled them in a bowl of cold water to keep her eyes from stinging, and dropped them into the cream sauce to bubble for half an hour. The onions turned sweet and soft. The sauce turned silky. A grandmother who had served this dish since 1938 would set the bowl on the table next to the turkey and the cranberries and explain to nobody why it mattered. Boiled onions in cream were the side dish that New England kept whole through the decade. Soup beans simmered on wood stoves across Appalachia as the foundation of countless suppers, providing protein and satisfaction when meat was scarce or money was tight. Dried pinto beans were sorted carefully to remove stones and bad beans, then soaked overnight in cold water before being drained and covered with fresh water in heavy iron pots. A ham hock, bacon ends, or chunk of fatback was added for flavor, and the pot was set to simmer for hours until the beans broke down into a creamy mass surrounded by rich, smoky broth called pot liquor. The beans were seasoned simply with salt and pepper, their flavor coming from the slow cooking and the pork fat that melted into every bite. Families ate soup beans several times weekly, spooning them over cornbread and drinking the pot liquor as its own course. Children grew up believing this was the most satisfying food on earth, and many still do. This dish represented security itself, proof that a bag of dried beans could stretch to feed a family for days. Potato puffs made thrifty use of leftover mashed potatoes, turning them into something crisp and golden that families looked forward to. Housewives mixed mashed potatoes with eggs, flour, and seasonings, shaping small patties that were fried until light and fluffy. The result was a side dish that stretched yesterday's dinner into something new and satisfying. Children loved the crunchy exterior and soft interior, which made them more exciting than plain mashed potatoes. Potato puffs fit well into a culture that wasted nothing, transforming scraps into a dish worth celebrating. They were often served at family suppers or church gatherings where plates of these little bites disappeared quickly. Some recipes added cheese, onions, or herbs when available, but the basic version remained a staple because of its simplicity. Over time, boxed potato mixes and convenience foods replaced the ritual of making them at home. While rarely seen today, potato puffs once symbolized resourcefulness, proving that even the humblest leftovers could be transformed into a comforting family favorite without spending much at all. Number 30. Skillet corn. Cooking sweet corn in a hot pan was the side a mother started after she put the meatloaf in the oven. The corn came off the cob in summer and out of a can the other 10 months. Butter went in first, then the corn, then sugar and salt and pepper. Some mothers added a splash of cream at the end. Some added bacon drippings from the coffee can on the stove. The whole thing took 5 minutes. It was Iowa corn in July and niblets in February. and the difference mattered less than the clock. A working mother in a Cedar Rapids suburb could put skillet corn on the table while she finished pork chops, and nobody asked for a recipe. The pan was the recipe. Skillet corn proved a hot pan, and a little butter could solve almost any vegetable. Fried corn captured the peak sweetness of summer in a skillet, concentrating flavors that boiled corn on the cob could never achieve. Fresh sweet corn was cut from the cob with sharp knives, then the cobs were scraped with the blades back to extract every drop of milky liquid. This corn and its milk were added to a cast iron skillet where bacon grease was already shimmering, and the mixture was stirred constantly over medium heat until the sugars began to caramelize and the corn turned golden in spots. Salt, pepper, and sometimes a splash of cream were added near the end, creating a dish that was simultaneously sweet, savory, and slightly crispy where the corn touched the hot iron. Mothers made fried corn when summer gardens produced more than families could eat, and the smell of it cooking drew everyone to the kitchen. This was a dish that had to be eaten immediately, straight from the skillet to the plate, capturing the essence of August in every caramelized bite. Pick one of these and make it this weekend. The Watergate salad, the creamed pearl onions, the funeral potatoes, whatever your family used to set on the table next to the meat. Sit down and eat it at the table, not standing over the sink. If any of these brought back a memory you had not thought about in years, tell me which one in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you in the next one. Until next time.